with Cynthia and Robert can agree on to work together on. And Robert has a newspaper, and Cynthia has a great following. And I would like to suggest that ending the war on drugs would be a huge step in the end to the marginalization of black people who are all being thrown in jail for minor drug offenses, where our college campus is full of white boys and girls are rife with marijuana, but nobody is stopping them while they're walking along their quad and saying, hey, put your hands up and let me search you, and then taking them and putting them in jail for having a small amount of marijuana. But a young black man walking in the streets of South Central has a chance every day of being stopped by the police and rolled and thrown on the ground, and even if he doesn't have marijuana, having some placed on his body and then arrested and put into the prison system. And once they're put in there, they can never get out. They have a record. It's just 17 years old and your life is over. And I think that we could all work together on that and try to put an end to this. And it affects our foreign policy, the drugs in Afghanistan, the drug wars in South America. I would like you each to comment on that.
They don't even have to be walking on the streets, Dorothy. For the short period of time that I was here living with my aunt, I would ride down, I think it's Crenshaw Blvd, and there's a number of barber shops along that street, it's a major street, and unfortunately, every time I rode down the street without exception at night, I saw black men lined up against the wall of several of those barber shops, outside of those barber shops being frisked by the police. And so you don't even have to be walking the street. Dr. Peter Dale Scott has written extensively about the U.S. role in the drug trade, and of course we know the tremendously important work that Mike Rupert did in conjunction with Gary Webb, who exposed the role of the creation of such a thing as crack cocaine, because really honestly, had the United States leadership at the time not wanted to protect the dictatorships in Latin America, perhaps my cousin would not have become addicted to crack cocaine. But my cousin has lived a life in and out of prison because of that addiction. And crack cocaine didn't exist until the United States government, working with drug dealers and one important African-American gang person, Ricky Freeway Ross, created something called crack cocaine and then systematically flooded every black neighborhood in the country. So I certainly would be willing to work on, write on, and do whatever I could to advance the abolition of the so-called war on drugs. And then if we look at, for example, the impact, as I have done, on the people in Colombia, Plan Colombia, and the so-called war on drugs, I suspect that Fast and Furious somehow had some relationship, although since I'm in school now, I don't have time to do very much research on these other things, but that there is a tradition of financing U.S. covert operations with illicit trade. And so the Afro-Colombians in particular have been negatively affected, moved off, marginalized, is it possible even to be marginalized any more than they already were, moved off the land, had their most popular political personality, Piedad Cordoba, kidnapped, sent into exile where she is now, after having family members and her chief of staff murdered. So these are the kinds of things that happen in other parts of the world, and they're happening at the behest of forces that purport to represent us. They are included in the we. And that's why I say we have to be really careful about that we, because I am not a part of that we, and I dissociate myself in every way possible from the policies of this crowd that purports to represent all of us, which I say does not.
So what do you say? So what do you say, Robert? Do you think that everyone thinks we can work on that in Truthdig about trying to get this war on drugs over?
Yeah, we have articles. I don't think it's particularly controversial. I don't know anybody who disagrees with that, but I guess I travel in a small circle. I do want to make a point about this we, since it keeps coming up. You know, we all cross over lines. We all do things we're not terribly happy about. But when I think, for instance, and this isn't my last book, I have a chapter on the poverty pimps, and I hated to write that chapter. But the fact is, the Black Caucus in Congress played a generally not good, and often individuals played a bad role in the run-up to the housing scandal. The right-wing narrative is false in the main, because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac really were just functioning like any old banks, and their top executives, including Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a black man who was named after Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was the head of Fannie Mae at a critical moment, but he was still paid $15–20 million a year, and there were plenty of people who were in on this. So, you know, yes, there's a lot of bad actors. When I think about the drug thing, and I, you know, think about a community like Oakland, or I go around downtown LA a lot, it seems to me it's part of a larger problem. We've basically written off a whole community. This is not to mean that there aren't black people who are making it, who've gotten good education and so forth. But when I ran for Congress in Oakland and Berkeley, my slogan was end the war in Vietnam, end poverty in Oakland. As far as I can see it, poverty is worse in Oakland now. And my son teaches in the largest high school in Oakland. I was just there a couple of weeks ago, and you know, I don't blame the teachers. They're knocking themselves out, but they have to fight for paper, for books. They're expected to solve all of the problems that the rest of society doesn't give a damn about anymore. So you know, they have to deal with, you know, dysfunctional family situations and no jobs and the crime and everything else. And I think as a society, we are basically, and in LA, we can't speak about this without talking about our, you know, majority of Latinos, and particularly the undocumented in our community, and the enormous hypocrisy. You had a movie like Help, which everybody, you know, thought was a feel-good movie, talking about the South in the 50s, but the Help movie could be made about undocumented workers working in homes right here in Beverly Hills or someplace, who don't have legal rights, who are exploited, who are framed, and so forth. So to my mind, the real problem in this society goes back to the thing I tried to raise at the beginning, which is this enormous income inequality, class discrepancy, and yes, it affects brown and black people much more disproportionately, no question about it. But if you live in a society that is so deeply divided that you can ignore the plight of this enormous communities that you have, particularly in your urban centers, you're in big trouble. And to my mind, the drug issue is just one manifestation of that. Trust me, if the drug laws were being enforced up here in Topanga, you know, and I know a little bit about Topanga, the way they are by those barber shops, you would have a riot here. You know, you people would be taking up arms.
I would like to follow up on what Dorothy has mentioned, because I don't want to let an opportunity or a moment pass without me recognizing that this was a special moment. I would like very much to have my words appear on Truthdig. And so I'm asking, is it possible for me to write something and have it appear on Truthdig?
I think your words have already appeared on Truthdig. I may be wrong.
You are wrong.
Okay.
In fact, I could go into a whole lot.
First of all, I don't go for this at all. The idea, because I don't make, nor do we in our publication make editorial decisions because somebody intimidates you in front of a crowd. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I'm too old, and I've been around too long, and yes, the easiest thing in the world I could say is, sure, write for Truthdig, I'll publish tomorrow. That's bullshit. It's bullshit. You give me a piece that I think is worth publishing, and you are willing to accept our low pay rate, because no, I don't get a penny out of this goddamn thing, and no one, and people write for us, they write, and trust me, we've had a lot of different voices on Truthdig. I don't think we can be accused of eliminating any point of view, certainly in the progressive community, but, you know, I'm not going to fall for that. You want to publish in Truthdig, you write a piece, we read it, we want to publish it, we publish it. You know, we don't want to publish it, we won't.
I didn't even know that you paid, so it wasn't about money. It's just about presence.
It's about you trying to make everything about you and not letting the dialect go.
Force you to publish anything that Cynthia wrote, Robert. I was trying